Hello and welcome back to the Bucket Pond channel. Today I will show you how to build a low-cost nano aquarium. This is the $10 tank built for bladder snails, ram's horn snails, and some other small invertebrates. It's fully planted with no pump, no filter, and nothing of that nature. All natural. Alright, so let's begin. To start with, I have a clear bucket here. This is actually a small trash can meant for like a bathroom or something. But I got it at the local dollar store for $6. And I'd like to mention that I got the idea for this indoor bucket pond from a comment from one of you guys. So please leave a comment below. Give me some more suggestions. I appreciate it. But to start with, we're going to add one of our small elephant ear plants. I'm not sure if this particular variety will do well underwater, but it should. This is taken from my backyard. Everything in this tank is locally sourced except for some of the stones, and I'll talk about them later. But there we go. We have the plant positioned there in the middle with most of its roots and some of the soil that it came with. We also have some organic compost here. This is mostly cypress mulch and forest products. You can get this for really cheap at Home Depot. It's like $5 for a big bag. So we'll call this maybe $1 worth of compost here. And next we're going to use some sand. This is sand collected from my own backyard. You can use play sand or any aquarium safe sand. I just so happen to have a nice source of it nearby. And to start with, we are covering the soil and the plant bulb there on the bottom with dry sand. And yeah, we're just going to spread it around a little bit. This is a Wallstad style setup, which means that we have a layer of soil or compost capped by sand to help keep it down. Next, we're adding some wet chunks of that same sand here. These wet chunks have been soaked for a while, and this will help to keep everything pinned to the bottom. Soil and compost will try to float pretty readily, so you need something to cap it with. You can use gravel, pebbles, anything like that. I just prefer sand and a bit of stone as well. And we're going to pack it down just a little bit. There we go. Looking pretty good so far. So my goal with this tank was to build a nice nano aquarium for very low cost. And yeah, we spent about $10 here. These plants that we're adding now are the very same cuttings from dayflower plants taken from our microfauna aquarium, which I will link in the description below. We took these cuttings about 1 week ago, and they've been soaking in some water since then, in a few jars of water. They have grown some small roots, and they are ready to be transplanted into another project. I don't want to add too much dayflower here, as this stuff will grow very quickly, and I don't want it to take over the project. So we're just going to add 2 big stems, and that should be pretty good. Next, we're going to add some marble chunks. I get these from Home Depot as well. It's about $6 or $7 for a very large bag, and I'm using a dollar or two worth of the marble chunks here. Remember when you're adding hardscape that less is more? I probably used a bit too much in this project, but I wanted to make sure that the plants were pinned down and held in place until they can, get rooted and get established in the project. This marble will actually act as a pH buffer as well to counterbalance some of the effects of that compost on the water. Generally, when I have snails, I want to have a higher pH. I don't want it to be too acidic, so that's what we're going for here, and the marble will help with that. So now we're going to add some water samples. I am using about 50-50 clean water, clean fresh water, and water taken from aquariums and other projects that we happen to have here. This comes with a bit of duckweed and tons of microfauna. If you look closely, you'll actually see a small ladybug that came in on our plants, and it's just running all around the aquarium. I thought that was pretty cool. But we released that ladybug after setup here. All right, and I had to let the tank settle for a few days. So here we are, 3 days later, and the project looks great. I couldn't be happier here, guys. Everything has cleared up nice. Adding those water samples from the aquariums, it tends to make the water a bit cloudy, as some of the particles and the mulm tends to settle after a while. But that also brought our snails into the tank and most of our microfauna. And I'm very happy with this. It looks great. I mean, for what we paid for this project, for $10, we have built a really nice nano aquarium. We have, what, two, three different kinds of plants in here. Emergent plants with the small elephant ear, some dayflower, duckweed, floating plants, and there's probably a few kinds of duckweed. But overall, we built this project for less than $10, and it looks great. Taking a closer look, you can see some of our snails in here. They are off to a great start. This is a few days after setup, so they've had a chance to get acclimated and to start exploring. They are looking for food, as they always do. But I think this is a really cool scene. You got some bladder snails down here with a few ram's horn snails, and they're acting kind of like cows in a pasture. They're just grazing. They're looking for anything that's edible, anything they can clean up and chew on, and I think that's really cool. Now, some people consider these snails to be pests, but here at Bucket Ponds, we love our snails, and I have a passion for them. They're great, and I've noticed that some of you guys, most of you guys, do too. So if you love bladder snails, if you love ram's horn snails, and you want to have an aquarium built for them, this is a great option. You can run a very low cost tank with no pumps, no heaters, no air pumps, no filters, nothing like that. This is all natural. We might have to do a water change here in 6 or 8 months, but generally, this is all we have to do. For lighting, I'm using a simple LED bulb from Publix with very high lumens. And the room that I'm keeping this tank in is generally warm, but it's not exactly heated. And it gets to about, ooh, maybe 60 to 70 degrees in here on average. If you look closely, you can see one of our worms over there doing what they do, basically freaking out. But those are also called boogie worms, tubiflex. They have some different names. It's not the exact species of tubiflex that you may be familiar with, but it's one of our wild caught worm species that we've been raising for a while, and they do very well in our aquariums. Looking a little higher in the project, we actually have some snail eggs on some of these wilted leaves in the background, and you can see some of our other snails there exploring and cleaning up the plant stem. I think this project looks really good. This would be really cool to have sitting on a desk or on your dresser. And looking at the duckweed, it's important to note that our duckweed is alive in more ways than one. I raised tons of microfauna here, and that includes worms and ostracods and diving beetles and all kinds of stuff. But the the duckweed layer is basically a habitat on its own. If you look closely, you'll see some very small, thin brown and red strings in there, and those are actually live worms living among the duckweed, consuming any wilted material, any leftover food that happens to be floating around up there. I should mention that I feed these projects with slices of cucumber, and I'm working on growing my own cucumbers now. But I want to show you something really cool. We're going to grab our little water bottle and we're going to mist the top of the tank here. This helps to break up the duckweed a bit and get it to replicate. And it's also good for the plants. It keeps everything nice. Basically a little rain shower. But if you look really closely, you'll see all of our worms there. Yeah. When we agitate the duckweed, it basically it agitates the worms as well. And it frees them up. They fall a little bit and then they swim back to the duckweed. But it makes this really cool effect. There are so many worms in here and they have replicated so quickly. This is amazing to me. I did not add this many to start with, but within like 3 days, we've bred up a whole army of them. They are amazing. Worms are not required for a project like this, but in my experience, the more microfauna that you start with, the more creatures that you include in your project and your ecosystem, the healthier and more long term the project will be. And so, looking at this tank, I can estimate about 2 years worth of life in here. Maybe well, 6 months to a year before we have to really do any maintenance other than trimming the dayflower plants. They will grow very quickly in here. That elephant ear, I'm not quite sure how it will do in here. It might even be a water taro plant. I didn't take the time to properly identify it, but I know most of the varieties that we have here at Bucket Ponds do very well in a semi-aquatic environment. As long as the leaves are above the water, they tend to thrive. And we're going to mist the tank one more time. Again, misting helps to agitate the duckweed, and it's good for the plants, and it also aerates the water. Having too much duckweed can kind of cut the oxygen. It can, it can cause an issue with oxygen dispersal into the water. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then at the surface of the water is constantly exchanging oxygen and CO2 with the local environment. So misting helps to agitate that surface and get things to, do a gas exchange. So anyway, guys, this is Bucket Ponds. This is our low-cost $10 Nano Aquarium. I'm very happy with this project. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. You can build one of these at home. You don't need the microfauna, but they definitely help. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Drop a comment, and I will get back to you soon.